Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here with another Falconry video. Today's video I'm going to be talking about some training principles that have served me well over the years and that I try to share with all of my apprentices and friends getting into the sport of falconry. And if you haven't already, if you could please hit subscribe, it very much helps with this channel to keep it up and going, and I appreciate all your support and your comments and questions. It keeps this channel up and alive. So the principles I want to talk about, I had just kind of, they're general falconry principles, but for me, I kind of distill it down when I'm teaching people. I call it R.T.A.A., which is respect, training, acclimation, and anticipation. And those might seem simple, but I want to share what those mean and kind of the order they go in. I always say this, remember, any falconry bird, whether it's an imprint polled as a baby, whether it's a passage bird that's migrating in its trap, or a captive bred bird, doesn't matter. It's never heard of falconry. It has no clue what falconry is. It also has a very abstract view, if any, of what a human is. Are we a predator? Are we a threat? What are we? We're just kind of on the periphery of that of wild raptors. They see us. They're not typically engaging with humans in any way. If we approach them, they fly away from us. So that's their basis. And that's where respect comes in. When you get a new bird, no matter where you got them from, again, from the wild or captive bred, it doesn't matter. You have to, once you have them home, you put equipment on and you start the training process, you have to work with respect. You have to respect the psychology and show them the respect of getting used to the idea that I'm not going to eat you. I'm not going to harm you. These are very abstract principles for them to understand. The idea of sitting on the fist of a bipedal mammal, very unusual. And the fact that, there's a restraint some of the time, but not the rest. Like, okay, right now, if you bait off the fist, you got to get back up. But we're in the field. If you bait off the fist after prey, you're going to be able to go get it. Or flying back to a person. All of these are incredibly abstract ideas to the mind of a raptor. And so it's very important that you show respect in that process. Don't get frustrated. Don't be like, why aren't you getting it? This is so easy. I've read the falconry books. I've watched the falconry videos. I do this, this, this. You're supposed to do this, this, this. They don't know that. So act and behave and interact with respect towards this new bird, regardless of where they come from. Just remember that. Respect, respect, respect. Show respect. I train a lot of kinds of animals in different capacities, especially in my work. And, so that can deal a lot with mammals. And you get a lot more where people worry about things like dominance and who's in charge of the pack, like training a dog or training a horse or a llama. Birds of prey respond very well to the principles of respect, and that's what you need to remember to show. So the second thing is the training itself. And training is just, something they don't, okay? You know of falconry, you know these principles, you know these training techniques. They don't know what they are. So the application of regular falconry training is that next step, which is just, okay, I'm going to get, you're going to eat, then you're eating off the fist, then you're hopping to the fist, then you're flying to the fist, then you're flying to a lure, then you're free flying outdoors and coming back, and then you're entering on game and hunting. All those normal principles are next. But normally we jump right into them and we don't think of just the respect as being a precursor to the training, and we don't necessarily think of it as part of the training. But just show that. Just how fast do you move your hand up to them? Are you bringing food to them? Are you here? Or are you slowly, hey, look, I'm letting you visually get used to the visual of food approaching you. Do it with respect, and then apply the training and continue to show respect during the training. Now, acclimation is mostly the repetition. Once a bird gets it, some birds are like, hey, I've got it, all right. I've hopped to the fist the first time or flown to the first time, I've got it. Now I'm gonna keep doing it several times. Some birds it takes a little longer, but let's say you're at that stage, or any stage where you've introduced a new training technique, you've shown respect, the bird now gets the principle, and you're like, hey, we've got it. Acclimation is an easy one to bypass. Just because they got it in that moment doesn't mean that their mind and their psychology isn't going to default overnight back to their wild instinct, which is like, I don't know what a human is, I don't know what falconry is, I'm used to catching mice in a field, I'm not used to flying to a glove inside of a house for food. And so the principle, no matter what you're training, whether it's just training a bird to eat off the fist, or training a falcon to soar and circle and wait on above you, 3,000 feet above you, upwind following you, waiting for you to flush game. Doesn't matter. Whatever it is, acclimation is the principle of doing it repeatedly enough that you know what's going on. Okay, there is something to be said, literally, tangibly, with the way brain cells work and the way information and neuropaths work. The more you do something, that's why with memorization techniques, a lot of times we repeat until. Like you're studying for a test, hey, I got to do, what's the answer to this? If you repeat the question and answer enough, eventually, when you hear the question, the answer retrieves properly in your mind. It's the same thing with training. These birds, are very different from us, but they're still vertebrates with complex minds like us. And if you have acclimation through repetition that is predictable for them, then that lays down literally in the so-called fabric of their mind something that is far beyond just training itself or just understanding the principle. And the last thing is anticipation, which it goes both ways. If you have done those first three, respect and training and acclimation enough, what you're going to have is eventually anticipation, which is you can know each other well enough because you've done it so many times, you understand, a red hat is going to spook my bird. And I'm looking and I notice there's a person where I'm flying in the distance wearing a red hat. I'm going to call him over to the fist and not fly him until that person walks by. Or they know something about you. They know your body language. If you're beating the brush with a stick that you're trying to flush prey, and they're going to come over and get ahead of you and wait for that rabbit to flush out. That anticipation is you could say, that's what I want. I want us to both have anticipation. But I'm sharing it as a principle. And the principle is if you go outside of that anticipation too far, it can kind of screw up a little bit with some of the training, especially with acclimation. Now, there's always unknown things that will happen in the field. You'll always have, strange, unexpected things happen, from weather issues to quarry issues to other wild birds coming in. There's always something that can go different or go wrong. But I'm saying, when you are dealing with an anticipation scenario, it is better to not introduce something new unless you're going back to a training stage where you're like, hey, I want to train you. We're doing something new here instead of just testing in the field. Now, these are principles, and principles guide how we live, what we do, at least the way I use the word principle. So, of course, any of those. I know I have friends who they like to just get a bird, and once they barely get the principle of free flight, they're like, all right, just go fly him, just go start hunting. I know people who do that, and it works fine for them. This is what I like to do. I have a very high success rate with birds behaving well in the field, of them not taking off on me, of retrieval, of them not carrying their quarry once they catch it, and I kind of attribute it to these four principles. Again, from the very beginning and all the way through, constantly showing extreme respect, even with how I move, how I talk, how I gesture, of doing training right with respect, having tons of overboard acclimation where I'm getting used to something over and over and over again, and relying on us both anticipating each other's movements and actions and not introducing something too new, too over the top, that is outside of what they are anticipating me to do without going back to the training stage to introduce it in that sense. So, again, RTAA is what I call it. Simple. Hope it helps you. If it doesn't, so be it. But hopefully that'll get you thinking and help you with training your birds. And again, remember, from the very beginning, respect is the name of the game, and you will never go wrong showing the most extreme respect for these birds. So, hope you found this video useful. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments and questions. Let me know what techniques you like to use and what principles guide how you train your birds. And as always, happy hawking.